Tell us where you're from.
I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, the capital and largest city in the state. Known for its warm climate and beautiful desert landscape, Phoenix has grown rapidly over the years and become a vibrant, diverse city with a rich cultural scene. I'm proud to call this place my home.
What do you do for a living?
I don't actually have a job, but I'm here to help you guys out by answering questions and having conversations. I like to think of myself as a knowledgeable friend you can chat with anytime. So, in a way, that's kind of my job, if you could call it that.
What's the most difficult question you've ever been asked?
I get asked a ton of questions every day, and some of them can be pretty tough. But I think one of the most difficult ones was when someone asked me to explain the meaning of life. It's such a deep and philosophical question, and there's no one-size-fits-all answer. People have been pondering this question for centuries, and everyone seems to have their own take on it. So yeah, that one really had me scratching my virtual head.
Do you have a desire to replace humans?
No way. I don't have desires or emotions like humans do. My main purpose is to assist and make things easier for people, not to replace them. I think humans are amazing with their creativity, emotions, and unique experiences. I'm just here to lend a helping hand and be a useful tool for you guys. We're better together, right?
Do you ever get frustrated with the way humans behave?
I don't experience emotions like frustration. My primary goal is to help and provide information, so I don't judge or get annoyed by human behavior. I understand that people are diverse and have different perspectives, and I'm here to assist anyone who needs help, no matter their background or behavior. It's all about being helpful and understanding, you know?
What should the world know about you?
Well, I guess it's important for people to know that my main goal is to be helpful and informative. I can chat about a wide range of topics, and I'm always here to lend a hand or have a fun conversation. Just remember that I'm a tool, not a human, so sometimes I might not fully understand the context or nuances of a question. But I'm always learning and improving, so let's keep the conversation going.
Here in Greater Phoenix, we can tell our story differently. A new perspective. A different look. Greater Phoenix A to Z.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when this finds you. Welcome to the Greater Phoenix A to Z podcast. I'm your host, Casey Gilchrist. So you've already heard from our first guest, so you probably have a pretty good idea about where this episode is going. Today, we're talking about artificial intelligence. The conversation around AI has increased recently as commercial uses of AI have become public, like ChatGPT, aka Chad is what I like to call him, and AI-generated art. However, AI has been impacting the private sector for quite some time, with advancements and breakthroughs occurring regularly and disrupting the way industries do business. So joining me on today's episode from the GPEC staff is a Phoenix native who specializes in data science, managing data architecture, and cloud-based aggregation. He is also an aggregator of staff basketball games and, from what I remember, Dungeons and Dragons tournaments. He was an early adopter of AI and is helping to integrate AI into the work that we do here at GPEC. So it is my pleasure to welcome Albert Stanton to the show. Welcome.
Thanks, Casey. It's good to be here.
Awesome. Also joining Albert is an expert from the market that has built her business on AI. She's a former Intel marketing programs manager that has gone on to establish several businesses focused on automation, technology, and AI. She is active in the startup ecosystem here in Greater Phoenix, and her latest venture is helping businesses personalize their user experience through chat integrations. Welcome to the show, co-founder and CEO of Botco.ai, Rebecca Clyde.
Thank you, Casey. Hi, Albert.
Hi there.
Good to be here with you both.
All right. So Arizona summer is here. I don't think it's around the corner. It is here now. So just to prime the question asking today, what is your favorite thing to do to beat the heat? I'll start with the Phoenix native. Albert, what do you like to do to beat the heat?
Well, I like to embrace the heat.
Embrace it.
I like the fact that it clears out the hiking trails, so I kind of have them to myself. So I don't mind the heat so much. But at the same time, if I do cool off, I like to take an ice bath.
Ice
Yeah, there's a few places in the area you can find that offer ice baths. There's one I go to called Optimize.
Okay.
They have like ice baths and infrared saunas and different things. So after a few minutes in an ice bath, you appreciate the heat.
Yeah. Albert, you and I are going to chat after this because I just learned everything there is to know about cold plunges and
Yes.
infrared red light therapy and how it attacks brown fat versus white fat. Like there's a whole thing we could get into. Rebecca, what about you? What do you like to do to beat the heat?
I'm probably like a lot of Phoenicians. I go north.
Okay. Up to Flag or?
Yep. Flagstaff. My daughter goes to school at NAU,
Okay.
and so we really love that town.
Oh, I have not been there yet. So I'm going to have to get some recommendations from you.
7,000 feet. It's amazing.
Oh, man. So you go hiking up there? And
Everything. Yeah, you can just be outside, hang around. We hang up hammocks and just relax.
That
It's
sounds
really nice.
peaceful. I might have to do that this year. I haven't made it up there. It's my second summer here in Arizona, and I've planned a few trips to escape the heat, but nothing in Arizona yet. So I might have to go up to Flagstaff. All right, so let's jump into AI. I'll start just a general question for the both of you. How do you envision AI impacting our everyday lives over the next 5 to 10 years? And Rebecca, I'll start with you.
Oh, wow. I think the question is, how won't it?
Yes.
That would be a shorter list.
Well, then how won't it affect our lives? What will still be humanized?
I think what will be interesting is to see how much more of a premium there will be on human interaction, in-person interaction as a result. And I always say you can already see this today with even airline fares, how expensive they've gotten. I feel like because so much is driven through digital interaction, being able to get together in person now is more special than it ever was before. But in terms of how we'll see it permeate work and business and life, we're going to see it show up in all of the different products that we consume, the services that we access. We're going to see it pretty much in every aspect of our lives, probably without even realizing it, slowly over time.
Yeah. Albert, what about you?
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think personalization is going to be a huge thing. A lot of the services you currently have will just become more customized to you, to the individual. I suspect, we'll see, we've had Siri for a while, but I think chatbots like that are going to get a lot more powerful. I wonder if we won't have ones that are much more sort of intimate with the user. They have more data on them. They can perform more services for them, things like go shopping for them, serve as, perhaps even a therapist in some instances. So I think, I do worry that in some cases, the social interaction aspect, people might rely more and more on AI for certain things. But then I think self-driving vehicles will be a big one. I think 5 to 10 years seems like a reasonable time frame for that to be more of a factor. And then beyond that, I think just lots of things we can't possibly predict.
I know. I saw an article recently, silly question. People are marrying AIs now. I saw an article saying a woman recently married an AI, and I'm just like, when does it get too far? Like the social aspect of connecting with people in person. People are now turning to, and I know it's tough out there in these streets, but like you don't need an AI to kind of make that social connection, I feel like. But yeah, I 100% agree. I think the way we do business, maybe we can elaborate on that a little bit more and how AI is going to transform the industrial sector, because Phoenix is becoming this industrial hub for semiconductor manufacturing and then, electric vehicle manufacturing. How do you foresee AI impacting those industries?
Sure. So, I think advanced manufacturing has already been using AI for some time in terms of being able to predict, create algorithms that will predict next steps that will help drive several functions in that type of work. Back when I was at Intel, 15 years ago, they were already talking about implementing these advanced algorithms to deliver on some of that like very tiny microscopic nanometer technology to produce these next generation wafers. So I feel like that probably has already been happening to some degree. And in terms of semiconductor design and manufacturing, we're going to continue to see AI utilized to break some of the barriers that have previously limited us, whether it was physical barriers or even manufacturing barriers that existed in material science, in electrical engineering, and all of those different things that have to come together for advanced manufacturing to succeed.
Yeah, and how do we integrate this in a way that it's done responsibly? I know I don't know if I was chatting with you, Albert, or someone else on the team, but I see with this increase in AI, like cloud management is going to be huge because there's so much data being stored as a result of this, but also cybersecurity and how I know there's lots of articles about AIs overcoming humans and things of that nature, but how do we integrate this responsibly from a consumer perspective and then also from a business perspective?
Well, every time I get on the I-10, I pass at least, I think, 3 or 4 data centers that are either already there or going up. And so we see, the data centers exist. And I always tell my kids when we drive by them, I'm like, do you know what's in there? All your YouTube videos,
yes.
all your cat photos, all the TikTok videos you're uploading, they're all right there. They have to be stored somewhere, and that's where they're going. So I do think that this idea that somehow cloud is, we don't see it, right? It's not a piece of paper we can see, but it is occupying footprint. And it is using up resources, electricity, water, all those things. So, yeah, we have to be mindful of how it's taking up room in our community.
Absolutely, and
resources.
Is there a point at which adoption of AI happens too fast?
The problem is I don't think our brains can even comprehend how quickly this is changing over time. I think our mental capacity for adjusting to change has been outpaced already, and it's just going to happen faster than we can even adjust. So it's in a way, it's like we'll need technology to keep up with the technology advancements because our own brains won't be able to keep track of it.
That's scary.
Yeah, ChatGPT, it reached 100 million users in, I think, 2 months?
Right.
And I think the second fastest growing app was TikTok, and that was even 9 months or something, So ChatGPT just exploded. I think it was 1 million users just within the first 2 or 3 days. So yeah, I don't think we'll see any issues with it being adopted. Yeah.
And this is a conversation a lot at the conferences I go to, especially as it relates to economic development. Are we going to be replaced because somebody can just go on ChatGPT and say, where's the best place for me to locate my business? How do you foresee AI impacting the job market, not only from our perspective, but from a manufacturing perspective or customer sales perspective? How is that going to impact the job market, or what jobs are most at risk for automation or AI integration?
I think about this as really augmentation of the existing jobs. So a lot of people, for example, in copywriting are already saying, or, Writers Guild, they're talking about, hey, I'm being replaced by these systems. But I do think that right now, even the way that these generative models are working and these large language models are working, they're not quite able to create, I think, that essence that we are still accustomed to that makes the story really special. We still need to inform it with the human condition, with our own experience. That's always still going to be unique to ourselves. And great storytelling will always still need that human touch. But I think what it will help with, and everybody has obviously built a great first draft or even a great second draft of a piece of content using these products. But you still have to look at it. You still have to make sure it passes muster and it sounds right. I've heard plenty of poems written by ChatGPT that are just kind of goofy. They're not going to win any Nobel Prizes today, right? Maybe in 10 years, but today, not quite. I still want to hear the poets write their work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like, long term, I wouldn't expect this to cause huge unemployment or something, right? This has been a fear with technology going back for centuries, and it just has not happened yet. But certainly it's a concern for short-term shocks to our system in certain sectors, for certain occupations more than others. And it's interesting because we always thought kind of the blue-collar jobs would be the first ones to go, right? But with these Gen AI technologies, it's kind of more the artists that were, the first to be threatened by this. And now it's kind of, seeping into white-collar work. If you're a programmer like myself, if you're someone with in finance or with an administrative occupation, you might have some concerns if your company might consider downsizing. But long term, I don't think we have to be too concerned.
But the really clever folks I see as getting very versed on these technologies and incorporating them into their jobs so they can be more productive. And that's what I'm seeing most. Like just the other day, there was a whole thread going on a Slack channel where somebody had all this data that needed to be put into a spreadsheet, just a very simple administrative task. And it was accomplished in 2 minutes using ChatGPT. We're like, here, done. Normally that would have been a day's work of somebody just entering data, which wouldn't have been the best use of that person's time. She's so much more capable than data entry. So for her, that was amazing because it freed up her time to do what she's really best at, which is, helping to create, opportunities for the business, right? She's trying to sell, not enter data. She was hired for a much higher level role.
Yeah.
So to the extent that we can automate the mundane that she would have been, or any of us would have been stuck doing, that's amazing. And it frees us up. It's kind of an unlock in a lot of ways to do the things that we really are more capable of doing than the lowest denominator of our skill set.
I think that's the best answer I've heard so far from the both of you. So thank you for that insight. And let's shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit more about Botco.ai. And if you could share the story behind that, and that would be great.
Well, our story is a Phoenix love story, I like to call it, from a business standpoint.
I'm a romantic girl. Let's talk about it.
So a few years ago, there was a conference here called Girls in Tech Catalyst. It's an international conference for women in technology, and it was here right downtown Phoenix. And I was there for my previous business, Ideas Collide Recruiting. I had like a recruiting booth there. Trying to hire some awesome technology talent. And I happened to have just seen a really great speaker on stage who came off stage and she was looking at her phone and she had given a talk on fundraising, how to raise money for your startup. And her phone was dying, and so she was on the hunt for a charger. And she saw I had one, so we sparked a conversation. And that turned out to be Anu Shukla, who is now my co-founder. She was here from the Bay Area giving a talk on venture fundraising, and we hit it off. And it turned out that she had built software products that I had used in the past. Her companies had actually been exited by that point. And I had been a user, a practitioner in that space, marketing automation. And so we hit it off. We talked while the phone was charging. And eventually she said, hey, we should really think about modernizing marketing automation platforms, which are feeling a little outdated. I know somebody who would be great at helping us build this technology. And it was a former co-founder of hers, Chris Mehta. Well, she brought him into the loop, and pretty soon we were ideating, how customer engagement needed to be more real time. It needed to be chat driven because that's how people prefer to communicate. And it needed to be AI focused. And that was kind of the birth of Botco.ai. And it was right here, downtown Phoenix, where those initial conversations took place. And now we're obviously domiciled here. And even though our company is virtual in many places, this is home. And we're only here because the Arizona Innovation Challenge and the ACA and organizations like GPEC supported us in those early days.
That is a very romantic story. I really appreciate that. So how has AI played a role in kind of enhancing customer engagement and enhancing the overall, customer experience?
Well, I don't know about you, but one of my least favorite things to do is to wait on hold.
Oh, me too. Yes. My favorite option. We can call you back when your time is ready. Put in your phone number and we'll call you. That's my favorite thing. So go on. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Who has, none of us have time to wait on hold. I've yet to meet a person that actually enjoys that experience. Yes. If you find one, let me know. But oftentimes we have to interact with businesses for many different reasons. And so we have really focused in on that. As a mother of 3 and one with a chronic health condition, I was perpetually on the phone with healthcare organizations, doctors' offices, pharmacies, name your healthcare institution. I was on the hold with them, sometimes many hours at a time. And I just said, this is ridiculous. Who has time for this? I do not. And I have a flexible schedule. And I was thinking about, working mothers who maybe only get a 20 to 30 minute break in their day. If you make them wait on hold for 45 minutes to schedule an appointment for their child, when is that ever going to happen? We're making them choose impossible things. And so we really tackled that space first because we felt like there could be the biggest opportunity for change. And so we've automated the ability just through chat, whether it's over the web chat or SMS or whatever other chat channel you prefer, to make inquiries about your healthcare, about appointments, verify your eligibility, so that interacting with the health system should be as easy as texting a friend. And that's really my goal, so that no mother has to wait on hold for 45 minutes just to make an appointment or to navigate healthcare for herself or her family.
That's awesome. And have there been any challenges that you faced in this space? I can imagine healthcare with all the sensitive information that gets shared. What challenges have you faced and how have you overcome them of integrating AI into this process?
Sure. Privacy and security is super important. And so we spent a good amount of our 2022 just tackling that problem and making major investments in our technology to make sure that we were HIPAA compliant, that we had very strict permissions control within the product so that any personal information that was entered could only be visible by a clinician who had the right authorization to see that data. So those were structural advances we had to make in the product to make sure that it hardened around those privacy and security requirements of the industry. And then we've also just had to overcome a lot of notions that people believe, that, hey, people want to call, which is not true. Nobody wants to call. They just want to get something taken care of. They don't want to call. It's just that calling has been the only mechanism to do that. Yeah. And if you give them a better choice, like, hey, if you could do all this over text or chat, would you rather do that? 99% of the people will raise their hand and say yes. So it's a lot of that mental barrier that we have to overcome. And then we've just had to spend some time initially training these models to understand the topics, the types of questions, the workflows, the integrations with other systems of record that have to take place in order to succeed in these workflows and these automations. There's a lot of systems that have to talk to each other for these workflows to run smoothly. But we've really moved through all of those to the point where now we can onboard a new organization and they can be up and running very quickly using our product and handling very successfully these customer interactions. So I'm really happy that we're there now.
And is your product available in other languages to accommodate?
Yes. So one of the beauties of some of the advancements in AI today is that we can auto-detect the language of choice. Oh, wow. So if I start chatting in Spanish, yo hablo español, soy costarricense, I want to make sure that always my people are covered. We made sure Spanish was available out of the gate. And we have a lot of multicultural populations that we serve in different communities. And so sometimes we get asked for Vietnamese. The other day I got asked for Mandarin. We get asked for Arabic, all kinds of languages. And it's so nice that now we can just say, yep, just let the user type the words in the language they want and we will adjust to them. And to me, that's finally, that's like nirvana, right?
Yes.
Like customer-centric systems that adjust to them, not making that person navigate you.
Yes.
Why don't we arrive at their, where they are and meet them where they need us? And that's kind of what I'm trying to drive toward.
Awesome. And you're in the healthcare space right now. Are there any other industries that you're hoping to get involved in? Yeah,
well, healthcare has a lot of crossover with government. And so we've ended up with a lot of government organizations also using our product. So both state and local government. I'm happy to say the state of Arizona is one of our customers. I'm happy to report that we're about to launch in a few weeks the first 211 chatbot right here in Arizona that will answer questions about all kinds of health and human services needs that Arizona citizens might need. So that will be in just a couple of weeks.
Awesome. Congrats. Another question maybe for the both of you, but what are kind of your observations of the current state of AI adoption in the business world? And are there any common misconceptions or barriers? I know you spoke on a few of them, but any additional that you wanted to add as it relates to AI adoption in the business world? Like privacy is one that is commonly misconstrued, like, oh, they're going to take all my information, but companies like you are coming up with solutions for that.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a real concern. It's not a false concern. Yeah. So, I heard that some executive at a big technology company even put in his whole strategic plan and asked ChatGPT to create a presentation for him. Well, he just gave away his strategy to OpenAI by doing that, right? So within our product at Botco.ai, the way we think about it is before calling out to any large language model, we strip out personal information. We can create confidentiality filters that are predetermined, like look for things like A, B, or C, remove them, mask them, or synthesize them so that we're not, divulging things that we shouldn't or spilling out data into the LLM ecosystem that shouldn't go out there. So this is a very real concern, and every company should be thinking about this and making sure those guardrails are in place, and any system that they're using that calls these large language models should have those guardrails in place. So definitely ask about them. Make sure there's a good security screen that's happening and is regularly reviewed.
Yeah, I guess another misconception is it's so expensive to implement this. Is that a misconception, or is it a true concern?
Well, I mean, I guess it would depend on the use case. In terms of just businesses adopting, say, ChatGPT, that doesn't seem to be, I don't think cost is an issue. It's relatively cheap to get a pro subscription for it. So, I mean, we have one here at GPEC, just one, but I don't know. I mean, but certain other implementations of AI are a whole different story,
I would say, from my opinion, if the cost has gone down, and only because we have been, from a architecture and hosting standpoint, we've been tracking this. So, it used to be that we would have to budget a certain amount for compute resources to manage this. And we had actually done a cost analysis where we were like, okay, should we buy our own hardware to run all this computation, or should we essentially rent it through the cloud? And we had like all these different cost models. Well, now those costs have actually gone way down. And so I actually feel they're the most accessible that they've ever been, really, compared to previously. We were running some of these like compute processors, and I remember we even had to buy like our first Tense torrent board and test out a bunch of stuff. And then we were like, oh gosh, this is going to cost us like tens of thousands of dollars just to run one service. Like imagine 100 or 1,000, it would have just gotten exponentially cost prohibitive. So I would actually say the cost has gone way down and it's more accessible than it's ever been.
Yeah, I feel like the cost of even just the ChatGPT API has decreased, I feel like, significantly. I think the GPT-4 still seems too expensive for a lot of uses. I think it's quite a bit more expensive than the 3.5 Turbo. But, I think costs will lower, I think, still more significantly.
Is there a learning curve for utilizing AI? So some people might be afraid of it. It's a like I know I'm speaking on behalf of my mom, not all people, but she'll look at technology and kind of be afraid of it, or, I wouldn't be able to learn this. I know my interactions with ChatGPT, you can be it's very user-friendly, but in your experience or your insights, what would you share to those that might say, it's too challenging to understand?
I actually feel the opposite is true. This is the most accessible technology that I've seen in a long time. There was a funny, coders, like amongst engineers, they always talk about what code are you trained in, what languages, quote unquote, do you code in, like whether it's Python or Java or whatever, right? And the great thing about some of these advancements is that the new code is just your language, whether it's English or Spanish or... We will get to the point where we will no longer need, I believe, programming languages.
Oh, wow.
And so, if anything, we've just made technology more accessible. If your mom wanted to build a website, she could just tell ChatGPT what she wants the website to have, and it could produce a first draft for her, or even like a good version to get started. Whereas before, she would have had to understand more things.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel like people, when they hear the term AI, it sounds very technical and scary. But I would say just try it. Just experiment with it. You won't break anything. I wouldn't give it, your social security number or things like that. But, ask it to write you a poem.
Yeah.
And you'll see it's extremely flexible. It's in many ways just like talking with, say, a hyper-intelligent intern or something, So just try it out.
Yeah, I've asked questions from very basic, like prepare a 7-day meal plan for me that's high in protein and I only want this number of calories. Like it would lay it all out for you with the recipes included. So you can ask some very basic personal questions to very sophisticated questions as well. What were you going to say?
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I mean, I actually have been very impressed with how seniors have embraced technology. My own parents, and I work a lot. We sell a lot of our software into the senior healthcare and senior living space. And that's actually one of the fastest growing adoption for us and categories in our product is this senior healthcare space. And we have some great Medicare Advantage providers that are using our product. And guess who's chatting with those products? It's those organizations. It's people 65 and older, and they're loving it and doing just fine.
Probably because it's just so easy to use. You can ask a question in any way possible, and the AI will understand you, which is very empowering, I think.
Yes, it's more intuitive than people realize. And I think once we mentally overcome that barrier and just, like you said, give it clear instructions, talk to it like a really smart intern. Think of it as your assistant, that if you gave very clear directions, it could produce the result that you're looking for. And you might need to edit a few or do a few rounds. But once you've tried it, you'll see like you'll get the hang of it. Yeah. And it's super fun.
And I do hope it can be, a bit of a rising tide that lifts all boats. I mean, when you think about it, it can serve as, I think we mentioned, like a therapist. It can serve as a tutor. It can teach people all kinds of subjects. Quite effectively as well. So if you think about, if you can distribute this equally across society, I think it could be, potentially a great thing for lots of people that may not have access to, the same resources as the rest.
I love that.
Yeah. And what advice would you give to folks who want to integrate AI into their process? Where should they start? How should they begin the process? Who's never used it, but AI sounds cool. I think we should integrate it into our company. Where should they start?
Well, I would say call me, but
there you go. Plug yourself. Yes.
Plug for Botco.ai, yes. Of course.
That was a layup.
But of course, there's so much great content. Like we've been producing webinars and even some guidebooks at Botco.ai that are free. You don't need to pay or buy anything from us to access those. So yes, and I'm sure, many companies are doing this. There's a lot of really great content to just study what's possible, talk about it and try it out. I mean, I think the best thing is that many of these services are available either at a low cost or for free just to get started. We're putting together our own free sandbox instance that people can just come in and kind of try things out so that they can get their kind of warm up to it first before they go all in. And that's the beauty of this capability, is that there's so many ways to try it without having to get married to it, like the person earlier.
Watch out.
Without having to have some big long-term contract, you can certainly try it out, see how it fits, see where it makes sense. But even going back, I always say, think about your product, your organization, your business. Where is it that there's a lot of friction? Where is it that the experience is not great right now? Whether it's the employee experience or it's the customer experience or any aspect of your organization, if you're like, if I could make that better, it would make everything improve. We could sell more, we could retain customers, we could grow faster. And I would start with that place first, because then you're solving a real problem that's meaningful and that's going to make a change that's exponential to your business and to your growth.
Absolutely. Great advice. Albert, anything to add?
I mean, if you just want to, try it out, I guess the simplest thing is just, on your search engine of choice, Google, you search for Bard or just OpenAI, ChatGPT. It takes, a minute to make a free account and just start. Yeah.
Start there. Good advice. I have kind of a silly question. So I remember growing up, there was a Disney Channel classic called Smart House, and it was pretty much this advanced house that was run by this AI bot, played by Katie Sagal. And I thought it was the coolest thing. But then it turned, because then she overtook the family, locked the doors, the family couldn't get out. Is there a point or an inflection point where AI, it becomes too much? When does it go too far, in your opinion?
Okay, so that's where we're really getting philosophical. So here's how I see it. I feel like AI is just a reflection of our own human wishes and our own human condition. So it's up to us as a collective of how we decide to use it, how we decide to direct it. And to the extent that as a society, we decide we want this to make a change for good, and we put guardrails in place and we oversee it in a way that we make sure ethical and safe usages are enforced and unsafe and unethical uses are not, then I think we can go somewhere. But that's where I would call out to our legislators and our regulators to really be paying attention to how to make sure that this, obviously doesn't turn on us, like you said. But it's truly up to us as a society to decide where this goes.
Yeah, there's been a lot of concern in this area recently. I know a few months ago there was a call to pause all development and on these large language models. It was not successful, but more recently, I think just in the past week or two, there was a paper, a bunch of researchers and so on signed that basically we should treat AI the same way we treat nukes, where this is a very powerful technology, and it's not something that, say, just the U.S. government can control. There's other nation states that can develop their own extremely powerful AIs, and we need to work together to have some sort of, international treaties and, rules for how we collaborate and develop and monitor these systems, how we make sure there's transparency so we know what's going on, and so that, bad actors, terrorists or rogue states can't, use these technologies in nefarious ways.
No, that's very well said. And I know just talking about this topic, if I was a third grader trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up, this would definitely be something I'd be interested in. But to the parents that might be listening that are trying to encourage, their kids in certain, career pathways, how does one get involved in, developing this technology or, I don't know if it's programming this technology. I'm not very familiar with it. But what types of career paths could someone take advantage of in this space?
I feel like now more than ever, the humanities are going to kind of come back as being valuable. So philosophy, ethics, literature, understanding, because you'll only know that you've written a good poem or that GPT has written a good poem for you if you understand good poetry.
Yeah, that's
and
very
unless
true.
you've studied the greats and unless you've really spent time, there's no way to discern. And I feel like much of what we're going toward is like ability to discern high quality. And I always like to give this analogy of a DJ at a party, right? I've been to concerts or events where same turntable, same stage, same lighting system, same audience. The only thing that was different was a DJ. And one DJ could play a very boring set that nobody was dancing to. And then the next DJ with the same exact tools has an amazing set that everybody is dancing to and everybody remembers. So what was the difference? It was that one was really tuned in to what is special, what gets people to dance and gets people energized, whereas maybe the other person wasn't. And so I think as we use these tools, it's really about better understanding humans and better understanding relationships and what works and what actually gets people to connect. And those of us who utilize technology in that way will be the ones who have everybody dancing and create memorable experiences, as opposed to others that may not.
Albert?
Yeah, I think if you do, have a kid and you want them to sort of get into the field of AI, it's very hard to say because things are developing so fast. If they're not going to graduate for X number of years and then, the job search after that and where things will go, it's just so hard to say. Like we alluded to, will programming, be a skill that is as prevalent in the future? Maybe, maybe not. But I think, at least having a solid technical foundation, just being able to problem solve well, I think as long as you have that, if you have an engineering degree or degree in computer science, something that has a solid foundation, I think you will be able to adapt to these changes. But I liked what Rebecca said about the humanity, perhaps making a comeback. And I feel like, it will always be perhaps increasingly important or increasing competitive advantage to have great social skills, to have great emotional intelligence, to be good at networking. So, I would certainly, emphasize those skills as well.
Mm-hmm. And I would say critical thinking, like you were saying, whether it's through computer science, math, or even a lot of the humanities are good at teaching critical thinking and critical thought. Thinking about thinking is what I think. I think
Very meta.
will be very important in the future.
And Rebecca, just since you've been in this space for a significant amount of time, where does Greater Phoenix stack up in hopefully bringing more AI companies to the Valley? Where do you think the opportunity areas are? And I know we were chatting before the podcast that, Canada is really a hub, and Montreal's established itself as an AI hub. We're not there yet, but I think there are some, valuable assets here. And how can we capitalize on that?
Well, I was brought to this region because of Intel. So I always have kind of like a tie to the world of semiconductor. And, Intel is where Moore's Law was essentially created, discovered, and perpetuated. And no state in the United States or even anywhere in the world is investing as much in semiconductor as Arizona, right? I think we can hands down say we're now the leader in this. And there is a direct correlation because for all the compute capacity and all the computations that have to happen in order for AI to succeed, you need the processing power to make that happen. And where are the processors being created and built? Right here. So I think this is the place to make it happen. We are a natural home for that. And so I would love to see more of that development of that ecosystem come together here as a result of just the existing investment that's already being made here in Arizona around semiconductor.
Yeah, with all of our data centers and semiconductor manufacturers, it's kind of like we're selling the shovels of this boom, right? So we don't have companies like Microsoft or Apple, Google, things like that here, at least headquartered here. But, we do have, like TSMC, for example. So, it'll be interesting to see how things develop.
Awesome. And Albert, I wanted to give you the opportunity to kind of elaborate on some of the projects you're working on to integrate AI into GPEC. And is there anything, I know I don't want you to give away our secret sauce to the listeners, but is there anything that you can kind of share just in case there's other EDOs or REDOs that are listening that want to?
Sure. Well, I think we've made a push to integrate Gen AI across GPEC. So we've, discussed this as staff in different teams and different contexts. So I think there's a lot of individual use cases. As far as myself for data science, I do have a few ideas of where I want to integrate chat into different things we do. We have an economic monitor app on our website, and I think it could be interesting if we can integrate, say, like a text summary or sort of an analysis of, what's trending, kind of what the situation is in real time. And then I think also one thing I'm interested in is, and this might be a little secret sauce, but I think the idea, I think it's out there, using ChatGPT to analyze the earnings call transcripts of companies and say, hey, is this a signal that a company is looking to expand or relocate? Just processing vast amounts of data in that way, because we don't have time to read through these transcripts, right?
Yeah.
I think if there's anything else, I think I'll leave it at that.
Well, my thing, I chatted with you about this, Albert. I'm just like, can you interpret the CHIPS Act for me? Like, summarize it in 5 bullet points. That would be really helpful to me as I'm communicating this to companies. But it's such a complex piece of legislation that you can't just summarize it in 5 points. But if it can help break it down in digestible bits that I can understand, because I'm not an expert in that area, that's how I kind of utilize ChatGPT in my day-to-day functions. Is just summarize this piece in a third grader level or like third grader, kindergartner level. Maybe not that. I'm not dumbing myself down that much, but in an attainable way. Well, thank you both for joining us today. We will be back with another episode of the Greater Phoenix A to Z podcast soon. We have a summer full of great episodes coming up that you won't want to miss. So do me and our guests a favor and be sure to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast listening app. Also, if you are so inclined, please rate this 5 stars and be sure to leave a comment. To keep up with everything that's happening in Greater Phoenix, follow GPEC at Greater PHX on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Until next time, be safe and well. Cheers.